Welcome to Nantucket Community Television's 2020 election coverage. I'm Charlie Walters. My guest right now is Helen Brady. She is the Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District in Massachusetts, and I'm pleased to have her here on the show.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're a Republican running in an overwhelmingly Democratic state, small d Democrat. What is your path to victory?
My path to victory is the grassroots effort. I'm out in the streets. I'm holding signs. I'm meeting police and other sorts of people that work in the community and getting an idea of what's happening. So it's very much grassroots. I believe in that. I think that's the way all campaigns should be run. Unfortunately, I don't have $1.5 million war chest. So it really seriously is that. And it is a little bit prohibitive with the virus. You want to be respectful of people in how safe they feel around you. So it's a challenge. So I think the standouts are probably the best way for me to get out there and let people see there's a candidate running.
Why do you want to serve in Congress?
I believe that everybody should serve their country in some capacity. I'm the daughter of a veteran. He's passed away, of course, but he served his country. He was an 18-year-old who went into World War II right out of high school. And what he instilled in me was that you have to participate in the government. Look what they gave us. That greatest generation and the people who fought in Korea and Vietnam, they all fought so that we could live the way that we do. And in these times, it doesn't look like that's what they intended. What's happening now is how they intended it to be. So I'm running because I'm a mother of 4. I'm concerned. And I remember what my father told me about World War II. At the end of that war, he was a medic. And he was in those concentration camps and he couldn't, and I mean, he was probably 21 at that point. He just could never fathom how that happened. Such an educated society to turn on their people. And this is the time where things seem very weird. And I'm worried about my kids' future. So I'm running. That's why. I'm not doing this because I want to be a politician someday or anything. I just want to try to serve my country and my community.
The 9th District is unusual in a number of ways. On the one hand, you have the Cape and Islands, but it also stretches almost all the way to Boston. It goes up to Norwell and Rockland, if I'm not mistaken. It also includes New Bedford, and it includes part of Fall River. How much of a challenge is that for you as a candidate to be running campaigns that cover so many multifaceted districts?
Well, I was asked to run for state auditor 2 years ago along with the governor, and that was a statewide. So that honestly, this was as big as it sounds to a person who's never done this. It's actually pretty manageable. I grew up on the South Shore, so I know every angle, and I've done Pan Mass, Best Buddies, all these rides. So it's sort of familiar territory to me. So you just have to manage your time well and get out to New Bedford, Fall River. I've been to every single town. I try to visit every police station that I can to show my support. So again, I'm not working right now, so I do have a little bit of time to put towards this effort. And I do believe that we have to go up against incumbents, especially in these times, and especially when in Congress, they have a 20% or low approval rating. So in my house, that's a fail.
This district, I believe, has more coastline than any other congressional district in Massachusetts. So let me get your thoughts on climate change.
I can't confidently opine on that, but I would love to see more public debate on it from different views and different ways to have solutions. And I don't know if you grew up in Nantucket or where you grew up.
I grew up in Cambridge, but I've lived on Nantucket for about 50 years.
Yeah, so you've seen the development there and people building homes on the water. And I grew up, my house in Plymouth is on White Horse Beach. So we've had to deal with, the worst was the blizzard of '78. So we know what we're dealing with. But some people might move to the coast and they don't realize, well, you gotta, put up a wall and you have to go through a lot of different regulations and whatnot to do that. So I think down the Cape, specifically the Cape and the islands, there's so much growth there, people living there that never did, that you have all sorts of challenges. So if everybody can have different viewpoints and not shut one person down, that would be helpful so that we can all come together on it. Whether you believe in it or not, we need to deal with the fact that we're putting lots of people in places that never saw that many people.
Is this, as you see it, whether it's Plymouth or Nantucket or whatever, how much of this is a local problem? How much is a state problem? How much is a federal problem?
I think all politics are local. So people have to decide how much they want in their communities. Nantucket, I had never been to Nantucket until I went on my honeymoon. We'd never been. I go to White Horse Beach and it's really hard to get me off that beautiful piece of land. And so we said, well, let's try Nantucket. And so I went there in 1993 for the very first time. It's very different now when I visit it. It's just more bustling and it just seems like there's a lot more people there. So if I'm a person that lives there, like you have for 50 years, do you want it to be that populated? Like, where do you guys draw a line in your local government as to how many things can be built or not? That's up to you, really. It's your community.
Let me stick with another local issue here, or local for us on Nantucket. The Steamship Authority, which is a state entity, serves Nantucket. In times of COVID, or in the time of COVID, they're having some financial difficulties. If the Steamship Authority decides it needs money, and if the Commonwealth decides it may not be in a position to distribute money, should that become part of a federal stimulus package?
Yes, 100%. My background is tourism. I did it for over 25 years with the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And I worked a lot with people in the Cape, out in the Berkshires. We collaborated quite a bit together. And one of the things that people don't realize is the amount of buses that come into New England, specifically in the fall with leaf peepers and whatnot. Now that's another industry where they didn't get a bailout. Those bus companies are owned by mom and pop. They're family-run businesses. And they bring so many buses into Massachusetts. Of course, you don't see them right now, but I have to guess that those buses probably showed up in Falmouth or Hyannis and people came into Nantucket for the day. So of course that should have some bailout money too, because that's a means of people getting to your island to spend money and visit all of the beautiful things you have there. 100%, yeah. I'm all tourism. I think it's the easiest industry that Massachusetts has, and it gets the least attention. There were about 34 people worked for Mass Office of Travel and Tourism when I first got into tourism. And now I think there's like 8 people. And it's sort of like, think about Disney. Does Disney really need to advertise that much? No, but they do. Florida pushes Disney all day long. And all the other little attractions around Disney have blossomed because of that. So I'm a huge believer in tourism as an organic means of revenue. Really easy. We've got everything in every history book. Plymouth, Nantucket whaling. I mean, there's just a plethora of things we could use our assets in each town. I was in Fall River. I said, you know, you have Lizzie Borden. Salem has the witches. Why can't you create something around this? And get people. There are people that like that stuff from all over the country that will come in and just, you know, focus on, you know, something dark and mysterious, and then you bring them over to the Battleship Cove. So there's ways to develop it.
Talking about tourism, one advantage or one tool that the whole country has used, Nantucket in particular maybe, in recent years is the H2B Visa. There have been problems with getting enough people who can get those visas, never mind getting into the country because of COVID. What are your thoughts on that issue and the district?
Well, if Nantucket wants more people to live there year round, then that sort of alleviates the need for visas, because you'll have more people there to work in your restaurants and hotels, I'm assuming. But I'm not sure what your economic stability plan is there in terms of during the winter time. I know a lot at 40, it was like 40,000 people leave. Is there enough work to maintain that? But it sounds like you have somewhat of a housing crunch too.
We do, but
Is there a way to keep people in Nantucket year round so that you're not so reliant on international help?
but if you do have to rely on international help, do you know of a way to increase the availability of visas or the amount of visas that are handed out
Yeah,
at
well,
this critical time?
yeah. I don't know of one because I don't work for the federal government, but having a deep understanding of the tourism world, and Nantucket isn't the only place that relies on people from other countries to come in and work. I think it's going to be part of, if I get elected, that I would be focused on that. It's just a natural for me to be focused on tourism, which I think falls under the commerce. And that would be all tied into it because everybody needs help, it seems. But will you have more people on your island willing to do those jobs after all this? We just don't know. It's such an unknown how we're going to bring back the tourism industry.
How do you feel about the federal government's handling of COVID?
I think we're at I don't think it's perfect. I don't have any answer other than I would want hearings after all this is said and done, different levels, to see what we could have done better. I also feel that the media plays a role in this, and there's some discussion about, you've probably seen with the Twitter and the Biden story, there just seems to be, they seem to have an awful lot of influence on what we see and what we learn. And I feel there was a lot of scare tactics. I don't know why. I personally had COVID-19 in February. So all of a sudden it's March now. And I just think we could have done it better. I don't know what the right answer is for that, but I'm not happy, which is one of the reasons I ran in the first place, because when you set a tone of fear into people like me, who I have kids, my kids are looking at me, the world seems to be upside down. They can't go to school. Their faces are covered where they breathe. We have to figure out what went wrong here and see, what can be done better. I'm running against Bill Keating. I looked at what he was doing in January and February, and he didn't have one tweet about a virus. So that just shows you people were not paying attention. Why wasn't the CDC paying attention to this? I was paying attention to it. The Boston Symphony Orchestra was supposed to go on tour beginning early February. We were focused on it. I just don't understand how it got so out of hand and shutting businesses down. And it's almost like seizing people's property because those people worked hard for those businesses. And now they have to scrounge and scrape and get back on their feet with all these mandates and whatnot that make no sense. I'm disappointed right now with it on both sides of the party line.
Do you think too much of this situation has been dumped in the laps of the individual states rather than in Washington, D.C.'s lap?
The states seemed like they wanted to manage their own situations, from what I recall. So DC has done nothing but fight and bicker, and there's such a divide that it is creating such unrest that you and I have never seen in our lifetime. So a lot of those people have been there so long. We need to get rid of career politicians because they can't get it done. And somebody asked me a question. They said, oh, well, you don't have experience and you're going up against somebody who had 44 years of experience. And I said, the whole DC has, thousands and thousands of years of experience, and look at where we're at. We're still fighting. Businesses still can't be open. Kids are still unable to go to school in some places. This isn't right. This is just not the America that my father fought for.
Would you call yourself a liberal Republican, a moderate Republican, a conservative Republican?
I call myself a compassionate Republican. I was a Democrat in Massachusetts, and I just didn't feel that the party really cared about the people they said they cared about. And it seemed, I had volunteered in a couple of campaigns. It seemed that everybody who volunteered on campaigns wanted a job afterwards. And I've never wanted a job after volunteering on anything. I never asked for one. I just do it because you should.
Now, speaking as a COVID survivor, I'm curious what you think about a national mask mandate, which we don't have, but what would you think of one?
Well, given the fact that I was probably exposed early February is my guess. I came down with it the week of February 10th. I remember it only because I always see my hairdresser once a month. I always know when that is. And I felt terrible. I felt really bad. But I am one of those people, I work through it. I have 4 kids. I can't really take time off ever. And just that whole malaise you get, and I just felt terrible. By President's Day, I was sick in bed with it. But the weird thing is that I was everywhere. I traveled. I was doing things with people at work. My husband sleeps next to me. My kids were with me. We were in car rides, whatnot. I coughed. I had that awful cough. And everybody in my family was tested for the antibodies, and they all came up negative. We did not wear masks. But if people are afraid and they want to wear a mask, they by all means should be able to wear their mask. I have no problem with that. But I happen to think when I look back how Fauci was talking about the masks and then don't put them on, don't take, that's the stuff that drives me crazy, the inconsistency and everything seems very arbitrary to me, and it seems political to me. And I don't know which side's doing what, but I feel like between the Republicans and the Democrats, it's just this back and forth. And the people that are being hurt are the American people, the middle class people who don't get their paychecks. People in Washington are still getting a paycheck, Charlie. They don't feel any of us. They're making, rules and mandates and whatnot. Same thing in Massachusetts. Are any of those people feeling any pain? They're not. And we're allowing them to tell us what to do and what to think and to be afraid. They're not digging into those numbers that the CDC puts out there right there. We know the Mass General, all those hospitals know how to deal with this when people come in with it. There's no weird drill now. I think once they hit the panic button, the hospitals got inundated, and that wasn't right either. Created a real fear and public health scare, and the virus is real. I had it, but I survived, and I'm running for Congress right now. So I hope people will be less fearful and realize that if you're a healthy person, you're probably going to make out just fine. I think what's the percentage of people who get it that die? It's very minuscule.
How long did your symptoms last?
About a week. It was weird because I was joking that I had it, but because the people I spoke to about it, I was talking about it in January. A family member had visited Africa and had told me that one of the other people on the trip was from Wuhan, and there was some virus there, and the person didn't feel well. And so I was asking questions about it then to a friend of mine who's a doctor, and they said, "Don't worry about it, Helen." So I was actually saying to people, "Oh, I must have that corona," but I wasn't serious about it. But what it did, what was weird, it was a cough. And by the way, I'm never sick. It was a cough, and it landed right on my vocal cords. Completely lost my voice. But it took me, so if I started feeling bad on a Wednesday, by the following Thursday, I still felt a little funky, but I was at work. And I remember thinking, I'm getting so old, I can't even get over this stupid cold, because I still felt weird. But that's it. That's all I had. But again, my family was tested. I just think the panic button was hit. It was like screaming fire in a theater. The media has a lot of responsibility in that, in my opinion.
Well, today, 7 or 8 months after you had symptoms, do you wear a mask?
I wear one to go into stores or where I'm asked to wear one, but otherwise I don't, because the chances of me giving or getting it are, again, minuscule, but that's my choice. I believe in people's liberties and privacy. And if somebody feels that they are going to catch this, they're worried for their own health, then they need to take care of their own health. There are people out there, and I see it because I'm out a lot, that are smoking pot and they're driving around. I see that all the time. Are we going to put breathalyzers in those cars so that those people don't run me off the road? Are we going to do that with alcohol? We know what alcohol does when people drive. So, I mean, at some point we have to live with this like we have to live with what I just described.
If you are elected to Congress, are there any particular committees you would want to be on?
I have a real interest in mental health. One of the things that I've never done is go into a tent city. And in America, there's no way, we're not a third world country. People should be living in tents. That's a mental health issue, along with drug addiction. We have to get control of that. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember seeing those horrible documentaries on the what were they called, this insane asylums back then? I don't even know, the mental hospitals. And this problem with homelessness has got to be dealt with, because I see it. I'm in Plymouth and I see people sitting right outside my windows here, and they're young and they're homeless, and it's not right. And it's all stems from mental health. So we have to really come together on that issue. I'd love to be on an education. I'm for school choice. I don't understand why kids in Boston are still being bused into the suburbs in 2020 when you've got Harvard, MIT. Those students deserve to choose where they want to go if their schools aren't performing right. The veterans, I'm a daughter of a veteran. So there's a lot of things I'd be really interested in. I really would be open to most. The fisheries, I would love to be on a committee regarding the fisheries, and of course tourism. So things that I'm always interested in learning. So, and I'm a tenacious person, Charlie. I don't know if you figured that out, but I'm pretty independently minded. I'm beholden to no one.
Last question. If you are elected, you will be under some pressure to spend an awful lot of your time fundraising. Is too much time being spent on fundraising by candidates?
That's all they do, and I won't do it. I actually think the term should be 4 years, and you have 2 terms to figure out what you can do. I don't think any of this financing of campaigns is fair. I've raised $18,000. I don't want to do fundraising. I want to be beholden to no one. And there has to be some legislation so that regular people like me can run. My name was tossed off the ballot by Keating and his buddy Galvin. And no American should have to go through that to just simply run for office. No regular citizen who's registered to vote should have had to go through what I had to go through. I was on the ballot, legitimately on the ballot, and then this one-party system in Massachusetts got me thrown off. And then I had to go to the Mass GOP, who hired lawyers at $75,000 to get me back on that. That's just not right. That's one-party system in Massachusetts. It's broken. It's very broken. And they do it with zero shame, no apology, nothing.
Helen Brady, thank you for joining us today on Channel 18, Nantucket Community Television's 2020 election coverage. Good luck with your campaign.
Thanks for having me, Charlie.
Our pleasure.
Give him Helen.
For Channel 18, I'm Charlie Walters. Thank you for tuning in. Please tune in again.